is the theory underlying the concept maps and how to construct them and use them. So this paper is written by Joseph and Alberto. Um, so here is the introduction. These maps are generally graphical tools for organizing and representing the knowledge. Concepts in the graphs are represented using circles or boxes, and relationships among those concepts are indicated by few connecting lines, like two or few connecting lines. These connecting lines are used to link two or more concepts. Words on these lines are known as linking words, or sometimes called as linking phrases, that are used to specify the relationship between any one or two concepts. So basically, the concept is defined as the perceived regularity in events or objects, or records of events or object designated by a label. Label is generally a word and sometimes symbols, and sometimes they use symbols to represent those labels, such as percentages or plus or any other labels to represent the concept. So prepositions. Prepositions are generally statements about some object or event in the universe, either occurring naturally or these might be artificial, like constructed ones. These contain two or more concepts connected using linking words or phrases to form a meaningful statements. So few other characteristics of concept maps are concepts are represented in a hierarchical fashion, with the most inclusive, most general concepts at the top of the map, and more specific, which are least general topics, arranged hierarchically below. Generally, it is best to construct concept maps with reference to some particular question we want to, for which we want the answers, such as the questions, such questions for which we want answers to construct the concept maps are known as focus questions. Another important characteristics of this concept maps is the cross links. Like you see the links which are used to define our relationships. So these define the relationships or links between one or two concepts or many other concepts from the same domain or different domain. And the final feature that may be added to these map is specific examples of events or objects. So we can in the concept maps. Other than that, we can also include a few examples normally that are not included in ovals or boxes, since they are specific events or objects and do not represent the concepts. So this is how a concept map looks like. Any doubts still here? Okay. So psychological foundations of concept maps. Psychological foundations of concept maps generally has three main features, that is discovery learning. Discovery learning is at the age of until the age of 3, the early learning of concept, where the individual will find out the patterns of regularity in events or objects, and then they start to recognize them as the same regularity labeled by older people with words or symbols. This is when the kids, I mean the babies, they get to learn seeing their mother, father, or any other elder persons. And then the next stage is the reception learning process. After age 3, new concept is mediated heavily by language, where new meanings are obtained by asking questions and getting clarification of relationships between old concepts and new concepts and their prepositions. So basically, reception learning is like after age 3, then when they get to start talking, they keep asking questions to people, and then upon receiving the information, they start to memorizing them. So the later stage is the meaningful learning process. So in addition to the different distinction between these two processes, there came meaningful learning, which requires three conditions. These three conditions are: the material is to be learned. The material to be learned must be conceptually clear and presented with language and examples related to the learner's prior knowledge, and concept maps can be helpful to meet this condition. So basically, they should have a prior knowledge of what they want to learn. And the second condition is that the learners must possess relevant prior knowledge. This condition can be met after age 3 for virtually in domain of subject matter, but it is necessary to be careful and explicit in building concept frameworks if one hopes to present detailed specific knowledge in any field in subsequent lessons. The learners must choose to learn meaningfully. So this is one main condition, that the learner should always choose to learn meaningfully rather than any other type of learning. The one condition over which the teacher or mentor has only indirect control is the motivation of students to choose to learn by attempting to incorporate new meanings into their prior knowledge. So this kind of learning, so this condition is like, it can be done indirectly, because even if the teacher or instructor directly forces them to study, that doesn't mean that they are learning it meaningfully. So they should have a little prior knowledge of it so that they start to attempt learning new things about the concept. So another important advance in our understanding of learning is that human memory. So human memory is not basically a single vessel to be filled, but rather it can have multiple interrelated memory systems. So all incoming information, that is all the incoming information that we get is organized in and processed in the memory in a particular pattern, so that it stays for a long term. So there are two types of learning, okay? Rote learning and meaningful learning. Rote learning is like when you by heart, like when you repeat, like there are tables which they make you learn from a very young age, where you don't even know what that actually means. Like, so you keep on repeating, and then they start, and then you can memorize them, like by through over a continuous period of time. And then meaningful learning is where you start to learn things and you don't have to memorize them, but you actually know the meaning so that you won't forget. So people often confuse with rote learning. Can actually find the difference between meaningful learning and a rote learning. So meaningful learning means it requires well-organized and relevant knowledge structures, emotional commitment to integrate new with existing knowledge, and rote learning results to little or no relevant knowledge, no emotional commitment to relate new with existing relevant knowledge. So upon when you start doing the rote learning for over a continuous period of time, then it leads to a meaningful learning, where you get to start knowing what you're actually doing, so which makes sense when you start doing the meaningful learning. So then you will start to then it might lead to creative productions, which means that you will want to learn more concepts, and then you start exploring the knowledge. So for example, so this is like, for example, if a person is presented with a list of 10 to 12 letters or numbers to memorize for a second, for a few seconds. Suppose if I give a random number list, then you can only recall 5 to 9 of these numbers. However, if these letters can be grouped to form a known word, if they are, if they're supposed to form a word that makes sense, then you can memorize up to a certain extent, like 10. Like when if that doesn't make sense, you can only memorize her 5 to 9 letters or numbers for only some period of time. But when it makes sense and you know something about it, it makes you remember it for a longer time. And then if that word is like the most familiar word that you use in everyday life, then you can remember it forever. So if the words are unfamiliar, like the technical terms which are introduced to you for the first time, then you cannot recall even 2 or 3 terms correctly. So if words are familiar and related to the knowledge that you have learned, like the months of an year, then you can memorize everything. So the difference is that first knowledge, like initially the names of months in a year doesn't make any sense to you when you used to start learning. But still, upon like memorizing it for a longer time, now you were I mean now if somebody asks you to tell the months of a year, you can do that very free I mean very you can do them correctly. So the knowledge structure or cognitive structure of a learner is not enhanced to clear the faulty ideas. Okay. So while all the memory systems are interdependent, the most critical memory system for incorporating knowledge into long-term memory are short-term memory and working. So initially for long-term memory, if you want to remember stuff for a long term, then it should be a proper interaction in your brain with the short-term memory and the working memory. But generally, the working memory limits to process only a relatively small number of psychological units, that is minimum of 5 to 9 at one moment, which means relationships among two or three concepts are about the limit of working memory's processing capacity. So it can process only two or three concepts at a time. So there are other two kinds of learning, that is iconic learning and archic learning or arching learning memory. Iconic learning, the storage of images of scenes we encounter or we see people, that we meet people or photos, etc. Any kind of things that we see generally, these are we start to remember them. So these are generally known as iconic memories. Our brains have a remarkable capacity for capturing and storing visual images of people or photos. So than memorizing a normal word, when you see the image of it, you actually will remember for a longer term. That's what studies also say. And archic memory is the learning and recall of sounds is referred to as archic memory. Such as this memory is also very important because it is very easy to identify sounds, like for suppose any singers who like they sing for, like hundreds of songs, and they do remember everything, and they it is very easy to recall those sounds, because we do because hearing is also one thing that when you hear, it is easy to grasp and remember. So epistemological foundations of CMAPs. I will pause here if anybody has questions here. Is everything clear till here? Okay. Epistemological foundations of CMAPs. So epistemology means the branch of philosophy that deals with nature of knowledge and new knowledge creation. What knowledge is and how the new knowledge is created based on the previous knowledge. So learners are struggling to create good concept maps that good to create good concept maps are themselves engaged in a creative process, and this can be challenging, especially to learners who have spent most of their life learning by rote. So when you by-hearted it, when you don't know the meaning, it is difficult to get new knowledge. So it contributes very little at best, or best to our knowledge structures, and therefore cannot underlie creative thinking or novel problem solving. So creating new methods of observing or recording events usually opens up new opportunities for new knowledge creation. So new knowledge creation means it is nothing more than a relatively high level of meaningful learning that is usually accomplished by individuals who have a well organized structure in a particular area of knowledge. Um, so this is also a strong emotional commitment to persist in new finding meanings that you want to learn. Here is the construction of good concept maps. So it is important to begin with a domain of knowledge that is very familiar to the person constructing the map. So when you want to construct a concept map, it is very important that you at least have a domain knowledge. You should be able to pick the correct domain knowledge, because picking up the correct domain knowledge is also very important during this construction. So a good way to define the context for a concept map is to construct a focus question. So when the question should be in such a way that it should be able to resolve your problem. and should be able to answer the question which you're looking for. So given a selected domain, the next step is to identify the key concepts that apply to the domain. So when a key concept is given, so when a selected domain is taken, then you should be able to find all the concepts related to that domain. These concepts could be listed, and then from this list, you can form a hierarchical order that should be established from the most general and the most inclusive concept at the top. Like how we discussed before, the hierarchy should be with the most general one, that is inclusive, most inclusive one in the top for a particular problem, and the least specific one to the bottom. Um, so the next step after collecting and then ordering them in a hierarchical manner, the next step is to construct a preliminary concept map. This can be done by writing all. You can write these ones on post-its or write it anywhere and form a chart of it. Or it is preferred to use the computer software. There is also a computer. There are computer softwares to create this concept maps. It is called as CMap tools. It makes easy to create concept maps. So after a preliminary step, so using this, you form a normal basic preliminary map. Then you need to revise the map so that other concepts can be added if they're needed. So after all the words are taken, after all the concepts are taken, then you start to link each other. So cross-links should be sought, which are important in order to show that the learner understands the relationship between the subdomains in the map. So this is the continuation. So you can see here. So here is a list of to the left, there is a list of all the concepts, and then to the right, that there is a concept map. Here it was done by, in this picture, it is not correct because this is not the way you do a concept map. Here it was done as the figure says, that a string map created by a fourth grade student, that when she went to a class field trip to a paper mill, she was able to write all the concepts properly, but she was not able to present the connections between the concepts properly. So here she failed to do that. But generally, when you make, I mean, it is very important to make proper connections, proper relationships between them, so that it makes sense that it is a good concept map. So finally, after revising the map, the concepts are repositioned in ways that lend to clarity and better overall structure, and then the final map is prepared. So concept map is also a powerful tool to create new knowledge. It is very important to recognize all concepts that are somewhere related to each other, and hence it is necessary to be very choosy in identifying the cross links. You should be very selective in that. Generally, these string maps, the one she did was a string map. So these string maps are either because she didn't understand properly, poor understanding, or inadequate restructuring of the map. So this is what I was talking about, the CTOol software toolkit. This software is available on the internet for free, which not only makes it easy for the users to construct the concept maps, but also allows to collaborate at a distance in the construction in their maps and publish on the internet. So others can go and check their concept maps and gain new knowledge. So this software will allow user to link resources, like you can link images, videos, or you can also link with other concept maps. So one concept map can also be linked with another concept map using this toolkit. So by linking between concept maps, learners can construct knowledge models. So when you connect one concept map with other concept map, there is a connection of concept maps. So this connection is known as knowledge models. And then a concept maps for evaluation. Um, so yeah, this is an example of concept map for curriculum, like how a curriculum should look like. So when concept maps are used in instruction, they can also be used for evaluation. Even national achievement exams will use concept mapping as a powerful evaluation tool. So some features of later versions of CMAP tool facilitate for assessment, which allow the comparison of an expert CMAPs. Like when you want to use this as an evaluation tool, it also the CMAP tool facilitates like when you conduct an exam, you the teacher will have their own expert CMAP, and then the students can give their own CMAPs individually, and then they start to compare. Then you get the evaluation results. So I conclude this presentation with saying that this paper gives the theoretical foundations and how the origin of concept maps. So generally at first, it may look like a simple hierarchy of words, but when you look carefully, organization of concept represented by words and propositions or ideas formed with proper linking of words, then then it might be simple then, but then it begins to when you start to see that as a good concept map, it is also simple but also elegantly complex with profound meanings. Concept mapping has been shown to help learners learn. Researchers can start creating new knowledge, and also for evaluators to assess their learning. So any other questions here?